Hi guys, Mr. Jaeger here, and welcome back to Invictus Launch Week. Today is day 3, which is, of course, Anvil Day. And once again, I will have to apologize for that I think this particular series is going to be a bit more of the slideshow edition. But no, the situation with the frames is kind of compounded a bit by the fact that there is actually quite a lot of NPCs walking around this event. Does feel a bit like a convention, because you can see we've got loads of people over there, people in the distance, and there's a whole cluster of them, probably a tour guide or a coach. Do they still have coaches in the 29th century? I don't know. But regardless, we have a lot of people, and we do need to get started. So, without further ado, we're going to have a crack. Today is going to be kind of shorter, for 2 reasons. First, because we only have 1 room. Second, because I'm going to make the decision to not walk around all of the vehicles as much. At least I'm going to pinprick some of the vehicles I want to walk around with, rather than just sort of do my usual preference, because obviously the frames are just all over the place at the moment. But still, hopefully you guys will enjoy. And I will say I've been looking forward to Anvil Day, because Anvil's the kind of ship maker that I prefer Anvil over Aegis, without a shadow of a doubt. Aegis has some really good ships, but Anvil has more awesome ships. Like, I'm not going to say Anvil has better ships, because that would say more aesthetically pleasing is probably the correct term. I prefer the look of Anvil over Aegis, but you know, differing opinions. I mean, to be fair, more aircraft I'd want to fly, as in Anvil, so, you know, shucks. But anyway, without further ado, let's get started. And the first vessel I'm going to talk about is got to be the Arrow, because the Arrow is one of the probably the more famous light fighters inside Star Citizen. It's kind of a meta, if you will. There's a lot, and you can tell by the amount of people, AI and everything that are nearby it, they're fucking hoarding over this thing, and I don't blame them. Because this thing is really something. It's only got size 1 weapons and maybe like a size... No, it's all size 1s. With some size 2 missiles on the side there. Are they all size 2s? Maybe a couple... No, sorry. Size 2 weapons on the side, size 1 on the top, and size 2 missiles on the thing. This thing is stupidly mobile and agile. However, with the introduction of the Fury, while... admittedly, this particular vessel still does have an advantage over the Fury, because obviously it has a quantum drive, which the Fury does not. However, it does. However, I would say it's kind of like a tit for tat. It's like, sure, the Fury doesn't have a jump drive, but you can easily store like what 3 from what we imagined, like you could probably store like 3 Furies to 1 Arrow. And the fact that the wings, we still don't have the opportunity to like adjust when the wings fold up or not, means that we can't, for example, land one of these things inside the Carrack. So all in all, rather interesting. All in all, it's a beautiful craft which has some limitations, but being a very small fighter, it still is extremely effective, and in the hands of a capable pilot, fucking deadly. There was a time where this ship was even more deadly, when the Defender came out with its hit scan weaponry. Because literally, this fucker would just fly around left, right, and center and just zap you all to death, and it was terrifying. When they nerfed it, the Tabanu Defender's weapons, everyone kind of took a collective sigh of relief. In my case, I even owned one of these things because I thought, oh, I want to fly these things. Then I realized something. I can't fly these things. So I was like, yeah, because you need to be an extremely talented... I mean, if you want to do well in it, I should add, you need to be quite a talented pilot. And of course, you know, size doesn't, just because it's a small ship doesn't mean it's infinitesimally better. In combat, there are still limitations of the size of the vessel. If you are hit, there is desync, there is problems. It's not always going to be effective to counter, say, for example, an Aegis Vanguard or a Gladius with an Arrow. You might want to get its equivalent or slightly better in order to do things. But as a fighter goes, it is a very good fighter with some pretty awesome heritage, and it probably will still be quite a strong, potent fighter in the future, especially when you start seeing things like Pyro being a factor. But still, very important. I'm going to continue the role of fighters from going from an aircraft that I felt I couldn't really do much with to a fighter that I think, oh, you know what, I kind of want to get it again. This is, of course, the Anvil Gladiator, and I do like this. In fact, I've even watched some of the I even watched a lore video talking about this vessel. And to be fair, one of the cool things about these particular vessels is the story goes that this particular vessel was part of a company that attempted to try and sort of scam the UEE out of a lot of money by promising a particular type of torpedo that was more effective than the previous models. Unfortunately, when the company was required to try and bring up, I'm kind of glossing it over, but for the sake of brevity, but basically when the company was asked to deliver on these supposedly superior torpedoes, they couldn't actually do shit. But the fighter that they designed to utilize these things was still being built. So to try and recoup some of the cost that the UEE had invested into this vessel, they were like, well, fuck it, let's just try and use these things as effectively as we can. Thus, the Gladiator was born. To be fair, the Gladiator has actually seen some pretty good combat service. And while she may not be a loved vessel in Star Citizen gameplay, I fucking love her. She's adorable. My only real complaint, and this is just my own personal opinion, is I really wish we could remove missile racks and change them for fixed gun mount positions. I know that there's probably a balancing issue, that imagine all of these bloody imagine one of these with just all guns, but I also kind of feel that it would be a really cool thing to have the ability to swap missile racks for gun racks, because this thing is beautiful. It's also got a turret with size 2 laser repeaters as well. Its firepower, though, it's really underneath, which are these little things here. These, of course, is the bomb bay for 4 size 5 torpedoes. That's right, the Stalker 5s are in this ship, and it is phenomenal. I love it. I might be ending up getting this vessel again at some point in the near future, either on this Invictus week, or I might get it on in the IAE. But this thing is quite a nice aircraft. It's not, in my time flying it, primarily PvE players, so, don't shoot me down. But in terms of combat, I found it was relatively reliable. Once you got some good weapons behind it, though, because bearing in mind, as you can clearly see, it's size 2 gimbal, so you've got size 3 fixed. Alongside, you've got 2 missile racks of size 2 missiles, which is pretty fucking nice to begin with, in addition to size 5 torpedoes. Yes, having the turret, to be fair, the other thing I would like to have, but I imagine that would cause some chaos as well, is the fact I'd like to get the turret auto-slave to the pilot. Sure, it kind of kills the purpose of balance turreting and the whole multi-crew thing, but I really want a turret slave. That would be so freaking cool, and I think that would be something that would make this aircraft vastly more enjoyable. But aesthetically, I love the design. It's like a Dauntless, and it's the Dauntless from the Battle of Midway and a Corsair kind of rolled into one. I personally quite like this aircraft. I definitely think, well, spacecraft. I keep saying aircraft, but we know it's spacecraft. I love this ship. It is beautiful, and again, she handles quite well. She's like relatively maneuverable, and of course, she can hold her own in a firefight. And if you spend the time to upgrade her, get her some good missiles, get her some good stuff, oh, she is gonna be singing your praises to the High Emperors. Oh, I love her. I have to admit, I am 100% biased in this opinion, and I realize that there are people out there who will say, oh, this ship is terrible, it's fucking ship, missile, but I love this ship. It is gorgeous, and while I did end up upgrading her because I was like, you know what, I don't really fly her, there's other things, I want to go up, I kind of regret doing that, and I'm like, no, we got to go back to her, so that's very soon, or in IAE, I'm going to be going there, so we're gonna be going there. It's most definitely a thing. So we take our journey. I'm gonna have this slightly unedited. We take our journey underneath the Carrack, which, as you can see, is a ginormo thing. Note actually the cargo pods, which eventually, when modularity becomes more of a thing, you can swap these particular cargo pods out for other items such as base things, securities, stuff that I think you can basically have a variety of different options for these cargo pods. Though at the current moment, the big sort of selling point of the Carrack is its cargo. Well, what you could utilize is the cargo pods, which can contain quite a fair amount of stuff. At the moment, we can't get them out and you unveil them, but what you could do in the future is possibly open these things out, because you can see that they probably have a lever system which allows them to open up properly. You could drive vehicles into these things and have them as sort of a ground-based sort of logistics system. And once, you know, more logistics-based content kind of comes into the game, I'm not gonna lie, I wouldn't mind seeing CIG copying Foxhole logic of Logi. I know that's a kind of, again, a personal opinion, but I think the Logi system in this game would be really awesome if you could have players manufacturing equipment, sending it to the front lines, or sending, you know, manufacturing equipment to like run colonies and stuff, and having ships like the Carrack or Caterpillar dropping off the supplies. I think that would be a really awesome thing. But anyway, we'll be getting back to the Carrack in a second. For now, we will go over to a ship that I fear may not have a lot of use at the current moment, but I still think is worth a good mention, and I'm even going to go inside as a kind of thing. This is the Terrapin. This is basically a reconnaissance vessel / stealth vehicle. It sounds silly, but it's like one of those ships that you could easily... yeah, it can basically hide itself, as well as it has a decent sort of... it's durable, but also exploration. It's designed to kind of just hug little rocks and do whatever, but it also is designed to send in, you know, interplanetary signals, and the ability to give pilots and their crew the ability to find out more information about the surrounding areas, whilst also getting stuff. I actually owned this for a limited amount of time. This is when I was sort of swapping things around, and I got my first ever Star Citizen package, which is kind of scary. There we go, let's just swap around into here. So, yes, to be fair, there's not a lot I can really say about this particular ship, except it looks nice, and I kind of feel sorry for the vessel, because it does kind of feel like there's not a lot you can really do or say. It does a very good job in attempting to pass the MFD test, which I quite like. So it definitely has that charm to it, and I feel like this is going to be one of those ships that when Pyro comes into it and exploration really actually starts making a difference, and when the exploration side of this game really starts being flushed out, you will be more likely seeing Terrapins being utilized. And I do hope that they get the justice they deserve, because I think, you know, you want to have a happy ending to a story like the Terrapin, because at the moment there's not really a lot of use for it, but it's definitely got some staying power, and it does look really cool. It's a very nice looking ship. Again, Anvil always makes really nice looking ships, and one can hope that they get some good use out of them. But yes, I actually owned a Terrapin, albeit for like less than a day, but still, I can claim I owned a Terrapin, because that's what matters. Claiming shit, that's how we roll. So going from exploration to, I was about to say abduction, but that's just bounty hunting in the view of the criminal. So we are at one of the law enforcement vessels in Star Citizen, which is, of course, the Anvil Hawk. So the Anvil Hawk is a dedicated fighter platform designed to not only engage and destroy criminal elements with a variety of guns, but primarily, however, its intention is more to secure and capture rather than just outright kill. Because while, yes, a dead bad guy is going to give you some profit, a live bad guy can do more. A live bad guy can tell you the secrets of his lair. A live bad guy can tell you where he's dug the dumped the loot, and who he's working with. A live bad guy earns you more credits. So the Anvil Hawk has the capacity to do a whole host of things. It has an EMP generator. It can. It's got the capacity to fly around and neutralize enemy vessels. And then when it's done capturing people and they've surrendered, then what I call the poop scoop comes along, and as you can see by our willing participant here, Mr. Gentleman, I'm sure you're about to get into the poop scoop. There you go. Good demonstration. I have timed it so well. Thank you very much, Mr. Poop Scoop. And there you go. So as the criminal has been taken into the Poop Scoop, he is now going to be stuck there, and I'm just... Yep, there he goes. There's the door. So that's effectively what basically is the back of the police car. The criminal is taken into the Poop Scoop, and he is escorted into custody, whereupon you will earn your rather nice keep. So as the vessel goes... he's... looked like he wasn't going to get out. He's like, nope, you're under arrest. You're in the Poop Scoop for life. But no, so being in the... so yes, the Poop Scoop anvil has... definitely made him smart. I don't see this vessel often out of Star Citizen, out in the verse. I think I've seen it on a couple of occasions, but at the moment, because there's no real gameplay loops which reward live bounties, that's not so much a thing. This vessel... there are better combat vessels to kill pirates than to capture them. However, once though CIG are already talking about implementing these particular things, so maybe in the future we'll be seeing this thing a little bit more. Maybe we'll see the Poop Scoop in action. I mean, I would personally like to see criminals getting arrested, because obviously then it would add an extra layer of complexity, because it's like, well, and I think with the whole soft permanent death systems, that would be a great encouragement for players to not fight to the death always. You know, if they realize that there are better things to staying alive, then, you know, that's better to just spend a few hours or maybe even a few days, depending on how much of a criminal scumbag you were in prison, than to lose your entire character and all the effort and energy you spent into it. So I think it's a good balance of the two. I would say it's a good balance. So, yeah, Anvil Hawk. Pretty nice aircraft. And as we make our way around to the end of the outer areas of the main hall, we are greeted with two, but one being a rather pleasant surprise. Two of the ships that would normally come with the Anvil Carrack, and instead have instead have not just come with the Carrack, but have become their own little meme of their own. I'm, of course, talking about the C8 Pisces. And not a bad introduction ship. As in terms of starters, it's not a bad ship to get started in. I wouldn't recommend you make this your full-on dedicated starter, but, you know, it's got a cargo bay. It has an internal sort of bay-esque area, so it's not impossible to sort of view this vessel with a little bit of bit of love, but it's got size 1s, it's got a reasonable thing, it can do the job, definitely do the job, and it flies fairly well. Though, to be fair, my main love for it is mainly because it kind of acts like you need the ship to get in from space to the ground. I think in future, when it's a lot harder for larger ships to land in Atmo, ships like the C8 Pisces are going to become invaluable, and possibly even the common way of getting from space to the ground. Because if everyone has to take a shuttle to get to the ground so that their big ships don't crash into everything, then I would say that is a pretty cool thing, definitely to have on side. So going on into this thing, what exactly is this thing? Is it just a paint scheme? No, it's not. It's not just a paint scheme. It is, in fact, an ambulance. Think of it as the Cutlass Red's little brother. Not only does it have its own internal... Not only does it look pretty dope, it's got its own little fancy glass. It's got a whole host of different options for materials. Even a medibed, which can cure, I think, level 3? I can't quite remember. No, I think it's tier 1 or tier 2. And I'm not great with the medical system at the moment. But basically in Star Citizen, there are tiers of wounds. Now, obviously, there are in the more dedicated, higher quality medical beds will be ones that can handle the higher or lower tiers, depending on what... I can't remember which way it's around. But generally speaking, if you've been injured via being shot or anything, and you've been downed, but again, it's nothing too serious, you can possibly get yourself fixed up. All right. If you've taken a royal butt fucking to the face, then unfortunately there's not a lot you can really do. But what this vessel can do is stabilize you and potentially even revive you. Again, no guarantees on that particular front, but if they can keep you stabilized, then that's something. And it does look like a pretty nice ship. And this kind of took me by surprise. The C8 Pisces is not a ship I would expect to see an ambulance form of. But now that I've seen it, I kind of think, well, actually, that makes more sense. Why wouldn't it be an ambulance? Because that's a pretty cool ship. And, yeah, I will say, the C8 Pisces continues to impress and shine even years after its deployment. I remember when these things were new. I think I've even got videos of when these were new. That's how old I am. And I remember getting a fairly decent deal when these things came out because there was a promotion. Well, not promotion, but there was a time where you could buy a whole bunch of these outright for like 30 quid, but you got a lifetime insurance token. I bought like 4 because at the time I couldn't really afford that many. I wish I could have bought more because, holy shit, 35 quid for a lifetime insurance token? You know, it was just, oh, that's a nice thing to have. So yeah, that was wonderful. Unfortunately, I couldn't quite get as many as I wanted, but I gave it my best. My bank wallet cried, but I gave it my best. But still, that's pretty much it for all of the ground vessels, well, all the vessels surrounding the Carrack, as it were. So, without further ado, let us have a look at the Biggin, or at least, you know, an exterior look. So, we have completed our initial tour around the Carrack, and I realized in the previous, or I remembered in the previous IAE, we didn't actually go in the Carrack. At least, not that I can remember much of. If I did, then fuck it, I'm going in anyway. It kind of is a bit of a disappointment to talk about the Carrack and not go into it, as you can see. So far, I will say the Invictus launch week has been fun, but the reliability has been iffy. I've crashed a few more times than I'd like to. But to be fair, this does feel like an event. I don't feel like just this random player running around waiting for stuff. There's actually quite a lot of NPCs here, so they're probably testing some things here as well. And I will say, it was pretty good. I can't, apart from the fact that I can tell the player is because the guy running, I can actually see a lot of things. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I like this. Anyway, the Anvil Carrack is released in 2019, or at least debuted in 2019, as part of the first preview of Pyro, all those years ago. 4 years, if you want to be reminded of how old you are. The Anvil Carrack has some pretty sweet things. It's got a pretty awesome cargo bay entrance, which lifts up into here. One of the cool features is actually on this point, where if we go over to here, we press this button, we can actually raise the ramp. There's actually a ramp here, which is pretty dope. So basically, you utilize this. You either drive an Ursa rover, you can drive a Tumbrel. I've seen an Ursa rover, Tumbrel, and even a couple of skimmed bikes like the Dragonfly. And there's multiple ways you can get into this vessel, actually, or at least get up into the different levels. So the first version, which most people tend to go through, is either the elevator to the left or the elevator down the cargo bay, which we'll get into in a moment. We'll just quickly talk about the docking collar. Here, as this is a thing that only kind of recently got some love, because now we actually do have a working docking collar, which is pretty fucking cool. So docking collars are really cool, and I hope to see more of them, because at the moment there's not a lot of incentive to use docking collars, but I think in the future that might be a case. There is, of course, another access, which, to be fair, is the access that I actually learned to fall in love with, which is, of course, if I can do this without triggering the animation, the service ladder. Now, the service ladder will take you up towards the 3rd level. I don't think you can specify which area you want to get up into at the moment, but the service ladder is really fucking cool because it does give you the ability to get up and down if you're not a huge fan of lifts, or if there are problems with the lifts. But it's a very useful thing to remember if you're inside one of these little babies going into that. So definitely remember when it comes to utilizing the Carrack. So I'm just going to walk into the cargo bay. So these are the cargo bays I mentioned to you earlier. So as you can see, there's quite a substantial amount of space within one of these particular bays, and you've got 3 of them, which is very, very nice. I said, again, you could use vehicles. They are eventually going to be made modular, so there'll be like usable, like changeable things you can put into them. So all in all, quite useful. You can even have a lift to go down into there, because why not? Anyway, we go in towards the armory and the crew quarters, and yeah, this is a pretty dope location. It's got some pretty nice things. Again, the Anvil Carrack is one of those sort of good ships. It was kind of like a concept design. Like, I say concept, but the thing is, there are various ships in Star Citizen that are like the first such and such, the first and such and such. I mean, a good example is Crusader Industries MSR, with the first interactable door systems and light management. So basically the ability to turn on and off the lights and the ability to lock doors. This particular vessel, I kind of felt like this was the first real kind of, not the first multi-crew ship, that would be more of a Hammerhead thing, but the more, I would say, the most Serenity style ship. If anyone has ever seen the Firefly series, you will know exactly what I mean. If not, the film Serenity is also a good example. It's a ship which has multiple layers, multiple levels, and each particular level / layer is customized and characterized. And in this particular hangar bay, in this particular elevator, which by the by is the only place you can get access to the cartography deck. But we'll go into the habitation deck for our first sanitary thing. So there are 4 layers to this thing. The habitation deck, which has the big selling point, is the med bay. This is quite a big selling point at the moment for Anvil Carrack users, though I don't know how long into the future this particular function is going to last, but I'd like to think. So if we go into the medical center, the main selling point of this particular medical bay, apart from the fact that you've got some pretty nice medical facilities, and I'm sure those will eventually turn into beds that you can get relatively decent healing from, is this room. This is a medical bed that's good enough to fully heal you and res you. You can set your own regeneration point to your Carrack, which I think is a pretty freaking cool thing. As far as I'm aware, this particular vessel is resable, which is a very big benefit here. The resability of your character in a ship like an explorer vessel like this is pretty awesome. You have your own little doctor's room, and there's the other room which has all the supplies in it. It's a pretty dope ship, not gonna lie. It's a pretty dope section, not gonna lie. It has some pretty nice sort of sides to it. A little quarantine section if COVID ever comes back. Hello, sir. So you've got your own little elevator system which allows you to access. Again, this is the section that you would find near at the front of the vessel as well. But the habitation deck has all of the snazziness to it. You've got your own little crew bay with access, little. Again, it's the habitation deck. What else would it be? It's a pretty dope location, actually. I'm not gonna lie. And again, it's one of those things that, while it doesn't serve a huge purpose at the moment, this kind of ship area, or this kind of ship, definitely sort of definitely feels like a ship that once you can get that full exploration going, or the expedition, if you will, we're going to see some pretty incredible sort of potentials for content and content generation. I mean, the thing is, the thing about Star Citizen, that once you sort of realize the potential here, this is a pretty cool concept, because you'll not only have, for example, players who will need to log in to do certain things. It's like, yeah, we can go on an adventure, an actual space adventure. We go into different parts of the universe and find out new shit. You could be a reconnaissance force for... You could be a reconnaissance force for the UEE. You could be a solo private archaeologist. The Indiana Jones that isn't shit. It's something that you can basically make your own, which I find to be quite an awesome thing. So we make our way towards the bridge. But before that, we head to the captain's room. Of course, the captain gets the nicest shit. Not only does he get his own little quarters with a few image and, oh hello, reflective surfaces. Much nice. Very nice. So a little mirror with a coaster. And a pretty nasty looking beer. And a few little things here. Some books as well. Dare to Dream. Stops for Humanity. Dog fighting. Oh, fair enough. Oh, there's some pretty cool books here. Trying to sort of Clan Brutality. Lawmaker's Guide. Ah, I love it. For anyone who hasn't seen it, there's a video series on YouTube which you can go watch, and I'd thoroughly recommend you watch it. It's a very good set of videos. It's basically the Lawmaker's Guide is a YouTube series that Star Citizen made a few, oh, God, dare I say, over nearly 10 years ago, where they talked about the different parts of the universe, the different systems, why they all sort of the way they are. And while the lore has definitely evolved a bit since, in certain regards, it's still really good idea to watch it just because you could feel the enthusiasm and the passion and everything else. I know I sound like a fanboy, and don't get me wrong, this game has its moments where it's utter shite. But I love the lore, I love the stories, I love the elements, everything. It builds everything together. It means that when something happens in Star Citizen, you feel its impact far more because you know, oh shit, I know about that planet. So let's make our way to the bridge. So the bridge is an interesting location. We'll get up into that location here. So this is one of two locations where you can fly the ship. So you've got the main pilot, who does have the most MFDs displayed. And apologies once again for the frames, but you know I've already explained it. So you have a whole host of MFDs, and this is primarily how you're supposed to fly the ship. And it does have a pretty solid view, and it also has, similar to what I was talking about with the Hammerhead, you can walk on top of the glass. I may have said it was the only only ship that had that bridge interior, but I should have corrected myself because, of course, you do have. Well, it's okay. I'd say the character's kind of different because while yes, I can walk on this glass and I can actually look down onto a planet, it's not the main thoroughfare of the bridge. This is a completely ancillary window bit. So I'm going to say I was half wrong. But still, come on. I could walk on glass and look down on a planet, and that shit makes you feel weird. And also scared if you have vertigo. But no, so that was the first sort of sections of the bridge. If we go to the upper sections of the bridge, then we get given an opportunity to go into the commanding module. So for example, on this one, you get the access to the support seat, which I think is also where you get access to using the drones, if I'm not mistaken, which we'll be getting to in a minute. And on this side, you get access to some remote turrets as well, which is dope. Working radar, by the by. So, as you can see, functional. And if you are on the session, you actually can see a few things, which is really fucking cool. But here's the other section, which I personally prefer to fly in, which is this command module. So you can actually fly the ship in this mode. And I actually, to a degree, prefer flying it in this mode because I've got absolutely nothing, no struts that are majorly in my way. And also, it gives me, again, not nearly the same amount of MFDs, but they are most certainly a lot easier to get to, which is pretty nice. So moving into the habitation deck, we've got some escape pods for the times where it doesn't quite go to plan. To the right, we'll get into that room in a second, we have an engineer door, which at the moment doesn't really have that much of a use, but once we can craft shit, which we've even got the beginnings of in the Vulture, which I'm very much looking forward to. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing more of it, put it that way. We have our own little drone room in here, which obviously there's not a huge amount of drone Oh, they're separate. Oh, okay, my apologies. I thought that you could... Actually, I'm not too sure. Maybe the support station is about... We'll see. I did hear somewhere, though I could be incorrect, that the support station was a location where you could utilize drones, but I've also noticed how there's drone usages here, so I must be incorrect about the support station. So I'm not too sure what the support station does. Maybe it's just another engineering output, but still supports things. So this is the drone room area, where you'll be having a couple of drones that you'll be putting into this vessel to do some exploration, sort of defensive drones. You know, it's drones. It's what you need to make, you know, space stuff go boom. And here, of course, are the drone operators. You see, it's not AI. AI is a big no-no in the Star Citizen, considering the amount of times AI has fucked over humanity, which I have actually learned about in the lore. Kind of terrifying. So here is the elevator seat. Or here's the elevator, which would get up to the top. And here is where you would exit the service ladder. So if I was to open up, there you go. There is the service ladder. So there is a good reason to utilize that. And over here is a really freaking cool area. This is the hangar bay, where you can obviously receive and open up to guests, or primarily your shuttle of shuttles. And if we press this little doohickey here, we close the hangar bay door, which is a pretty fucking cool thing. And to be fair, you could probably utilize the Carrack as a medical craft until such times as the Apollo come into it, either via the medevac or the triage. And as you can see also, which I should mention as well, we actually have the opportunity to go into the gunner seats as well. So we've got the turret on the left, turret on the right, same sort of deployment. Right, lag spike over, we are back in action. So on the left and starboard and port side, you do have your gunners locations. So it's a bit of a journey, definitely, to get onto the starboard and the port turret. But once you get into them, they're pretty solid pieces of kit. Firing size 5 or 6 though. I don't know. I can't remember the size of the guns. But suffice to say, anything that tries to fuck with a Carrack is going to be in for a hard time. Here is another really cool room. The engine room. It has quite a lot of cool shit inside, including some pretty heavy stuff there. Not even quite filled up. But no, so you even have 2 levels of the engines room, which is quite a cool thing. Quickly hop down, have a little look. And again, it's one of those things. Oh, we're a 90s view now. There we go. The cool thing about this particular ship, well, the cool bit about this particular bit is it gives that extra depth to it. And also it means, you know, this is also kind of preempting the future, because bearing in mind, in the future, we're not you're going to be exploring these things as part of the whole, hey, what can we salvage? Can we salvage these things? Can I fix these bits of kit? Can I, you know, there's a whole host of gameplay options around these particular segments. So eventually it's going to be a pretty fucking cool thing to see all of these bits and bobs. So yeah, no, really, really cool. Hang on, let me just quickly call the elevator. There we go. So you've got your engineering bay, which is pretty cool. And we're almost finished with this particular segment. So now we go to the back of the ship. Well, the stern of the ship. And we wait for the elevator because I forgot to call it. There we go. Go to the cartography deck. So the cartography deck doesn't really serve any real purpose apart from giving us an ability to potentially guess where we are in the Stanton system. Now, I don't know, or I don't really believe for a second or I don't know if this is in fact the Stanton system and its current orbital axis. The reason why I don't think it's the case is because we've got quite a lot of planets in this thing, and really we've only got like 4 planets in that regard. And at this rate, we've got 5 in the cartography. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So I don't believe the cartography deck is actually displaying any accurate details. But this room I quite like because it kind of reminds me of Mass Effect. If you may recall, in the original Mass Effect, you've got all of the cool... you've got the Shepard talking to the Council, who never fucking seem to give you a break, and are always surprised when I always leave them to die. Yeah, And the other main reason for this particular deck is it's because it's the airlock. You can actually hop into the ship from outside here, and that gives you the ability to do a few things. Ooh, there's a button here. Oh, hello. There's more buttons. Oh, nice. Nice. But yes, the Carrack is pretty much an all-in-one sort of deal, and it has a lot to offer its players. Like, holy shit. The Carrack is most definitely one of those ships that, when we finally get the full usage, there's going to be some pretty fucking awesome gameplay loops to be had. We just need to find those gameplay loops and hope that the game will be a good environment to sort of operate in a Carrack for. Because obviously the big thing about the Carrack is the exploration craft. You go into the ship with the expectation to go out into the verse and to explore as much as we can. And of course when we can do that, it's amazing. But if we can do that, because we need the sectors to do it in. But still, the Carrack, it's a very beautiful ship. I actually now own one again, though not through choice. I do intend on upgrading it at some point in Invictus Week. But still, a very impressive craft nonetheless, and one that certainly has got its charm, most definitely. And for any clan or minor group of friends who wants to explore and do some fun shit in the game already, I can't recommend a better ship. So, after our wondrous journey with the Carrack has come to a conclusion, we are now entering into the first and only secondary rooms inside Anvil Day. And we're presented with a whole host of both the old, the new, and the fucking impossible to get and the heartthrob of the entire cunting game. So yes, let us continue our journey. So the first thing we're going to talk about is what the current UEE fleet is utilizing in its actions, and that has seen quite a lot. So this is the F7A Hornet. This is the current edition of the UEE's main prime fighter. The F7 Hornet series has proven to be quite a popular and effective counter against such ships or such enemies as the Vanduul, along with being able to sort of mix a variety of things. Obviously, the disadvantage of this particular vessel can kind of be seen immediately, which is it's a little bit, in my opinion, underarmed, and certainly could do with a few... well, no, to be fair, it looks alright. It's got some pretty decent firepower, some size 1s on the front, some size 1s on... Actually, no, some size 2s on the top, and some size 4s on the side wing. So it's not super underarmed, but when we get to the F8, you'll see what I mean in comparison. But, yeah, this thing is a long-time service vessel. Like, at the time of this game, at the time of things, this particular vessel is in the process of probably being just... It's at the end of its service life. This is its latest, most improved form, which, again, in my opinion, I would say is the nicest looking version of the Hornets, without a doubt. This is its somewhat special cousin. We don't talk too much about now. This is, of course, the Super Hornet, or the F7... Oh, no, just this normal Hornet. Okay, yeah, so this is the F7C Hornet, the civilian edition, which obviously isn't as well armed as the military edition, but, yeah, This particular ship design is quite old, not just from a lore perspective, but also from a game perspective. This ship was one of the first few vessels to sort of be highlighted in Star Citizen's history in terms of trailers, and I'm sure at the time of its construction, it was quite a revolutionary fighter design. You know, everyone took it for the X-Wing, which, now that we have the Antares, the Scorpius, not so much the case. But this particular vessel does have some pretty dope things. You've got some size 2s on the side wings there, and there are many additions. There's a stealth edition, there's a recon edition, there's a double-seated Super Hornet edition, which I feel is inspired by today's current Hornet. It's got a whole host of different sort of options, and as fighters go, it's been a mainstay. For some reason, some people like it. I really don't like the Hornet. I don't know what it is about them. I just don't find them appealing whatsoever. The only Hornet, as mentioned, that I find even remotely appealing is this thing, the F7A. But that's just because it's slightly more streamlined and doesn't look like a fucking duplex game. It just looks like someone played Duplo and got lucky. But still, it's there. The Hornet series is a pretty dope fighter and is still available for purchase. Though, if you're going to be buying any version, the Super Hornet is probably your better bet, as it does come with the whole shebang and package. The only downside is it is a dual-seat aircraft, which means while you do get the guns slaved to you, if you're a solo pilot, you do have to be careful what pilot seat you get into. Going on into what I normally tend to go on one side to the other, but this time I'm just going to work my way through. Going from the Hornets, we go to a vessel that I really fucking like, and in my opinion, has one of the best, is the best looking ground transport ships in Star Citizen. This is, of course, the Anvil Valkyrie. The Valkyrie that looks so sexy, and I love it. I fell in love with this vessel the moment I saw it, and I love it. I fucking love it. It's beautiful. It's a really dope-looking combat ship. That's a combat dropship. You've got it also. This came before the Carrack. Where is it? But it also has. You press this button. Boom. It's got the ability to prevent your vehicles from going through. Now you can easily stack up to 2 Ursa Rovers or. Yeah, without the ramp being here, you could easily put 2 Ursa Rovers. I want to say 2 Ursa Rovers because I've seen it done. It's not easy. You can also do 2 Cyclones as well. Again, you're going to have to lower the ramp because you need to get them really close to the front. But you can easily get certain transportation for ground Vix as well, which is very, very good. The other benefit, of course, is you can get up to 20 Marines. That's right. These particular doors, which I'm opening up now, these doors here, 10 sit on a piece. You can easily get 20 Marines. So if you want to drop in a combat zone, this is your place to do it. And it does look damn good doing it. It's definitely one of those... as I said, it's a dropship. You can easily drop a platoon's worth of troops easily. And you've also got guns mounted onto the side, providing, admittedly, only size 1 supportive fire, and to be brutally honest with you, not a lot of use. But, you know, placebo is always a nice thing to have, and the ability for you to utilize said placebo in a more offensive manner is also pretty dope. The cargo, or the crew bay and the cargo bay is separated from by 1 level. Though you do get the ball turreted gun at the back, you get the turreted gun at the rear. On the top, number of seats, chairs and beds for the pilots. You get the remote access turrets on the side, and you make your way in towards the gun, or the actual pilot's seat. And it looked nice. It looked real nice. If, of course, the game wants to load. Of course, we are struggling through that, but I'm not going to focus too much on that. Still, nice view of the back area, not going to lie. It's got that real kind of compact but efficient sort of design mentality. Everything has a purpose. It's not designed to be luxurious in any way, but it's not designed like Drake Interplanetary, where everything just holds together with a bit of duct tape and a lot of hope. There's a lot of usefulness in this particular ship, unlike a lot of things, and it wraps itself up into one beautiful package of a dropship. And most definitely, for anyone who's wanting to get into the business of doing logistics, or at least dropping off stuff, and also taking the mining vessel, because that's another thing this vessel can do, is it can take a ROCDS, which is one of the main reasons why I want to get it. Because while, yes, it's bad that the ROCDS can't be put into the back of many vessels in Star Citizen, it does at least have that sort of thing in mind. And we're back. Bit of a lag spike beyond reason. Okay, I just realized what all those dots are. Yeah, that's all the NPCs. And that's just those in the main room. Holy shit, that's a lot of fucking NPCs. Jesus Christ. Yeah, no wonder we're fucking choppy with our frames today. Jesus! The truth is, there's a lot of people here. Yeah, I know. I can see that. It is a lot of players. I think they may have overspammed the NPCs a tad. Just a smidge. Nothing too extensive. Just, you know, just tearing my eyes out in frustration. Right, let's get off this ship before I get too much into trouble, because I think my computer is barely struggling on. Once again, I can only but apologize for the unfortunate quality in streaming, or video recording. The only thing I can say is there are too many fucking NPCs in this area. And frames are not to be fair, if I'm struggling with this with my upgraded rig. But anyway, to summarize the Valkyrie, it is a beautiful vessel with VTOL capabilities and a lot of fucking firepower. Since they changed the roles of how ballistics work, you're going to be working with energy weapons more, but definitely worth upgrading some of your weapons to more Gatling reliance, because I think that's the coolest thing about this ship, is that you can most definitely give a middle finger whilst also dropping off troops. You're not completely helpless, which is a pretty nice thing. So as we finish off the story of one ship and make our way to another, the Hurricane, which at first I thought had the worst possible starting weapons you could ever possibly give a two-seat vessel. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, it's got a lot better since they changed the weapons, because originally they used to put fucking scatterguns on this thing. Might I remind you that a shotgun in space is still just as stupid as it sounded before. Just it's a little bit more irritating this time. So, yeah, no, they've done a good job. They've actually done a pretty fucking good job now. Which is, you know, big thumbs up. I'm happy to hear about that. That's the kind of stuff we want to see. So, in terms of combat capacity, though, the Hurricane is most definitely a pretty decent ship. It's, you know, it's one of those medium to slash heavy fighters that can do some pretty good work. Though, I won't lie. I saw a video recently, which I even made a post on the forums about, talking about turning, having the airplane design, or having the ship design of the turrets be focused more as making them like helicopters than like World War II combat vessels, because the way that combat is fought in Star Citizen is very similar to how helicopters fight in certain other video games. So one of the images that talks about redesigning some of the ships actually has the turret on the back of this thing over here get moved to the underside, somehow being over here. Does it work perfectly? I don't know, but it looks a lot fucking better in my opinion. And ever since then, I've kind of seen this vessel and gone, it's a bit ugly now that I've got the turret on the top there. Even though it's quad lasers, which used to be quad tarantula turrets, but obviously since the change in ballistics, it's kind of been a bit different for. But still, in terms of combat prowess, I have used this thing on occasion, and when the weapons weren't shit, or when you replace the scatterguns, you got quite a decent amount of firepower, and even as a solo vessel. But unfortunately, you do need 2 people to make this thing actually viable. So it's a bit of a shame that these kind of vessels exist, because it kind of limits what kind of solo players can work with, unlike, for example, other ships where you can actually work with them quite nicely without needing some stuff. So, hey-ho. But this, of course, is what I mentioned about... So going back to the Hornets for a second, this is what I was talking about being underarmed. We've got at least 2 weapons on the wing... Sorry, 3 weapons on the wings for each particular thing, and in addition, we've also got some turrets at the top. This is, of course, once again, the Anvils. This is the Anvils, I would say, the best ship that they've done so far, which is, of course, the Lightning. It's sexy. It's gorgeous. I want one. You give to me. I need in this game, Star Citizen. You won't let me rent it. You're a bitch. I just want to rent it. I think it's only fair that we get the ability to rent this ship. 2 days spent with this beautiful fucking vessel. God, the memories we could make. It's just so good. Just so fucking good. I love it. I mean, it's a fucking F8 Lightning. What's not to love? It's heavily armed. It's got shitloads of missiles. It is the best combat vessel in Star Citizen. And we can't play it. Now, I realize that's quite a bold generalization, but for fuck's sake, look at this thing. I could easily imagine extremely talented pilots just making mincemeat of, like, most, if not all of them, meta ships. And this ship is designed perfectly to take on the Vanduul, or any other foul Xenos that make plague the systems. So, no, I would say 100% I love that ship. And I think it's the best ship in the game. So, yeah, no, that's my 2 cents on that thing. So, as we make our way down into the holodeck, we are greeted with a couple of ground Vics. Quite famously, well, this particular vehicle has a bit of a personal space in my heart, as it was one of the first few ground Vic. Well, it was one of the first few sort of new things that were being released around the time that I started playing Star Citizen more seriously. So this is, of course, Anvil's Ballista. This is the ground-based anti-aircraft vessel. As you can see, it's got a whole host of different missiles on the back, some of them ranging as 5, 6, and 7s. And the purpose of this vessel, or ground Vic, is quite simple. Fuck over anything in the sky and to make anyone struggle to see at night. It's quite a terrifying presence. And it does have a pretty dope view. But, as said, it's a ground Vic with a lot of... it's a ground Vic with a lot of potential if there was much reason for ground Vics to have a reason being there. I'm kind of, at the moment, not exactly convinced, but I am in the position where I do believe the ground vehicles in Star Citizen really need to outdo themselves to justify being there, because there's not a lot of reasons at this moment to have one. The only vessels that I would say, ground Vics, that I would say, apart from fucking around in, that you can use more seriously, is such things as the ROC. Hey, random person trying to hide, we see you. But no, so the Ballista is the original version of this particular ground Vic, which has the capacity to do quite a fair amount of damage, and it does have a modular frame to it. How modular? Well, have a look at its brother, the Sentinel, which is... No, the Centurion. And I think also the Spartan's going to be... Yeah. So this is the Centurion, which is the gun equivalent of the Ballista. And as you can see, there's a whole host of cool things inside there. We will hop into this version. I prefer the Centurion because this thing definitely has a better... I mean, the missiles are good and all, but come on, it's fucking Gatling. It's DAKKA. It's size 7s. These things are designed to fuck over anything. And it's got an attrition on the top as well for the driver to use. So, no, I would say for a certain fact that this thing is way deadlier and way cooler as a result. And let's not forget about the troop transport Spartan, which I had in my inventory for some time before upgrading towards other things. But no, the Spartan is basically the troop transport edition, designed to carry at least one team's worth of infantry in and out of the vessel. Again, very nice looking vessel, not much reason to utilize it. And I feel kind of sad as a result, because these vessels, these ground Vics, are most certainly really fucking nice looking and have the potential to be extremely effective. But right now, it's only clan-related activities rather than player-led activities, or even having to deal with AI with these Vics. We've yet to see ground vehicles used by AI. I would like to see them, though, because that would be pretty cool. I just don't think the AI actually works in that regard. But still, the Anvil series of ground vehicles most certainly have some pretty cool potential. Just, we need to see that. Anyway, let's now make our way towards the end of the day, which is always a sad occasion. I do enjoy our time with these particular ships, but we do need to get on because, well, unfortunately, I am getting hungry, and it is, at the time of the recording, getting ever later. It's going to be a 10 o'clock dinner tonight. Yay! Or a dinner at 10 o'clock when I start cooking it. Anyway, so let's... Ooh, I know you. So let's look at the holodeck now, where we see the future of Anvil. And as you can see from the start, we can see already a very sexy looking ship. This is the Liberator. This is basically what we would call one of those pocket carrier style vessels. It's got the capacity to mount, I think, at least 3 fighters. 1 on the top, 1 on the bottom, and there's like a cargo bay inside which you can utilize. But what makes this really fucking cool is this is one of those sort of landing vessels. You can take this into many combat zones, and basically you could ensure the destruction of one's opponents or an early beach setup location. So this is a very good ship to have if you're in the mindset and logic. If you're in the mindset of, I want to get into a location and not get immediately yeeted out. Now, obviously, with the ship, with the Furies being a thing now, God only knows how many Furies you could fit onto one of these babies, but rest assured, I'd like to see that. Not Spirit of... Yeah, oh God, what's his name? The YouTuber who puts all of the Will It Fit series on. Yeah, that one, most definitely want to go for that. Hell yeah to that. I'm definitely down for that. So, yeah, no. I'm going to remember his name, hopefully, before the end of the episode. I just can't remember it right now. My apologies, sir. You make good content. Ooh. Oh, this must be the Legionnaire. Yes, so this is a relatively new concept art. Well, new concept. The Legionnaire. This is basically a dedicated boarding vessel. And yeah, you can see it's definitely... Is it the Legionnaire? Yes, it is. Nice. Yeah, so it's a dedicated boarding vessel. And I think you can see at the front there, the little oop scoop goes into the vessel. Infantry kind of clog in on behind. It's got VTOL thrusters. And once boarding becomes more of a thing in Star Citizen, you can imagine there's going to be quite a lot of players who will be doing the pirate routine or fucking AI. See, you're the reason why I've got 10 frames per second right now. Oh, the cheeky cunt, he's inside the bloody thing. But yeah, no, this is a really nice looking vessel. Definitely one of those ones that you need to... That's really nice. But yeah, so as you can see, it's a very nice looking ship. And while I don't think boarding is going to be a thing for quite some time, I also think it's going to be pretty cool when it arrives, because we've got ships like the Legionnaire alongside a few other ships that will... It'll add that extra layer of danger. You know, it's like, do you want to blow up the ship and then board it? Or do you want to save the ship and then blow it up and then board it? You don't know. I will say, boarding a ship does sound pretty cool, though. And the last ship... What are you? You're new? I don't think I've seen you before. What are you? Oh, wait, no. Oh, no, you're not. No, you're not new. You're just more detailed. I can't remember the name, though. Crucible. There we go. So the Crucible. Oh. And as per usual, the fucking CIG don't put a bloody ramp on, so we can't see the top half. Fucker. But no, the Crucible, which unfortunately you can't really see a good amount of detail of because the bloody holodeck is always too high, and I can never see the fucking thing on the bottom half. But the Crucible is basically like an interplanetary dry dock where basically a ship, Hornet size, would be able to land onto here, and more extensive repairs. Unlike the Aegis's Vulcan, which could offer limited repairs due to the drones and everything, this is basically a thing that you'd land the ship on, get some dedicated repairs, and fly off again with some good stuff. I just hadn't seen the back of this recently. Well, they're definitely adding some more details to this vessel. But at the moment, there's not a huge host of things to have. But still, the Crucible is working its way up, and we are seeing some pretty dope-looking things as a result. But regardless, I do hope to see something like this in the future, especially since now we can kind of fix vessels with the salvaging mechanic now, which is pretty cool. We just need to get better stuff, better things. Again, more fucking AI. There's been shitloads of AI in this thing. I reckon CIG are testing the amount of NPCs just to see whether or not the game can handle it. I can resoundingly say, it can't handle it. Not without problems. Oh, Christ. But that is sadly going to have to conclude today as we wrap up with the holodeck. So thank you very much for watching if you got this far. Once again, I apologize for the frame issues. I hope that we don't have too many other issues in the further days, but obviously there's only so much the AI spam in this particular event is, while amazing to look at, is unfortunately causing me a lot of issues in terms of recording. I can but apologize, and I try and talk over as much as I can the lag spikes when they do occur, but again, there are some points where it's not so pleasant. So thank you very much for sticking with us in that particular regard. But still, I hope you have enjoyed. Anvil has been a really awesome day. And as I said, I prefer Anvil to Aegis. They've got a lot more ships that look nicer and arguably have a lot better combat ships than Aegis as well. So I'll just set that gunpowder barrel on fire and watch as everyone starts to shit into the comments section saying, "Oh, you Anvil-loving piece of garbage! The bloody Origin jump works have got better fighters." And then the Aegis fighters are like, "No, it's the Aegis fighters." And then there's no, it's a Crusader fighter. And then everyone has a kickoff, and I just watch it, just grab the popcorn. But still, all in all, very relatively successful day. And Anvil being a really sexy fighter group anyway, I like them. I like them a lot. So anyway, that's about it from me, guys. Hope you have enjoyed. If you like this kind of content, let me know in the comment section down below, clicking on the like button, and of course subscribing to the channel. And don't forget, I have got more days inbound. We've got, what's the next day? Fairly convinced. I can't actually, to be fair, I can't, oh, there it is. What's the next day? The next day, actually, hang on. We've got Anvil, so now it's just, well, the next day. The next 2 days afterwards is all of the rest being bundled into one. We've got Consolidated Outland, Tumbrel, Argo, RSI, and even Origin Jump Works. So, you know, we've got a fair amount of stuff to deal with in the last few days of Invictus Week, and I hope to catch you there. This is Mr. Jaeger signing out. Have a good one, guys.